So in another video, I broke down the RPA, the Residential Purchase Agreement, and I talked about what everything means and how to fill it out. But sometimes I know we're in a hurry and we need to do things quickly. So in this video, I'm just gonna give you the highlights so you can follow along and just fill it in when you're in a hurry or you just need a refresher. So let's jump into the RPA. Okay, so first and foremost, remember this is a bundle. So when you do it, you're not gonna have the RPA coming first. So the first thing you want to do is check the box for your buyer. You want to fill out your buyer name, all of your brokerage information. Then we're going to go down and the next form is actually going to be your RPA. So we're going to fill out the date prepared, which is going to be today's date, whatever date that is for you. And this is the date that it's prepared. Remember, it's important because it's not the same date as the agreement date. It's not the same date that it's fully executed. It's only the date that it's prepared. So just keep that in mind because all of the subsequent documents like addendums or an RR or an SCO or anything like that is going to refer back to the residential purchase agreement dated, and then this is the date it's going with. So then you fill out your buyer information and then the property information. Remember, just as a reminder, you can go to MLS Connect through either Zip Forms, maybe DocuSign also has it. I can't remember. I know Glide doesn't have it, sadly, because I like Glide the best, but I think it's the most user-friendly. But you can use any of these, and I have used all of them. But the MLS Connect is a really quick, easy shortcut. So it fills all of this out for you, but remember, you don't need that. You can get all of this information on the MLS. So the next piece you're going to fill out is just going to be your information about the seller agents. And so the seller agent, broker DRE, agent DRE, and then your information. And then remember, if it's the same brokerage, then you're going to change it to dual agent. But if it's not, you're going to leave it as this person is representing the seller, this person is representing the buyer. And make sure that these boxes are checked because that is a telltale sign of a newer agent. Then we're going to put in our purchase price. We had talked about, let's put it back to being $1 million just to make it clean and easy. Our close of escrow day is 30 days. The expiration of offer, the default is 3 days, and I think we should just leave it at that because unless you want to put a lot of pressure on the listing agent or the seller, you want to just leave it at 3 days and wait for it to come in. But if you want to change that, you just add the date here. Then your initial deposit is generally 3%. If it's going to be anything less than that, then you want to let the listing agent know why so that they can be prepared and tell it to their clients as well. The loan amount is going to be just the amount of the loan. So if they're putting 20% down, then their loan amount is going to be 80%. And remember, the initial deposit or the EMD, the earnest money deposit, is a deposit toward the down payment. And so down here, it's going to show the balance of the down payment is going to be less the initial deposit. So the down payment would be 20%, which would in this case be $200,000. But because they're already putting $30,000 down, now the balance of their down payment is $170,000. Remember that this does the math for you, so you just want to check to make sure that your numbers are right. It's just a fail-safe, but I have done this plenty of times where I have gotten these numbers wrong. So you just want to make sure that you're putting the right numbers in. Then we have a seller credit. Remember, we had said that if you're asking for a seller credit, sometimes you can, if you ask for more, even in a competitive environment, you can ask for more. You can ask for a seller credit and then just up the purchase price amount. So we're not going to do that here. We're just going to leave it blank. But if you're putting in a seller credit, this is where it would go, or a request for a seller credit. If you had any additional terms such as we're doing this for a 2-1 buy down. So instead of it going to closing costs, you need to explain what it is. So you may need to do it like that. You want to talk to your lender to just see if you are doing any kind of a buy down, if it needs specified terms here. Then we want to have the seller payment to compensation for Seller payment to compensate buyer's broker. This is going to be what you're going to be paid. So you're asking for whatever amount this is going to be. Then we have verification of all of the funds. Remember, the default is attached to the offer, so you don't need to write in anything. The verification of loan application. Right now I have it at pre-approval, but the gold standard is the fully underwritten pre-approval. So that's really what you would like. The pre-qualification, nobody wants that. If you've only had them pre-qualified, that is no good. We want at least a pre-approval or a fully underwritten pre-approval. Then we have these, the default is 5 days. 5 days for final verification of condition. That's your walkthrough. 5 days prior to close of escrow. That's what COE is, close of escrow. So that's fine to leave it at that. Assignment request, 17 days, no problem. This is if they say there's, they're assigning it to their trust or their LLC. That's when you would need an assignment. The other times is if it's like a wholesaler or you're working with a different type of investor, they might want to assign it to somebody else. So that's what we have that there. Quick pause. If contracts feel intimidating, that's normal. No one really shows you what these forms look like once they're actually filled out. That's why I put together my California Association of Realtors Sample Forms Library. It's a small, curated collection of real-world car forms completed the way they're used in real transactions. So you're not guessing or second-guessing yourself. Think of it as having examples to lean on while you're learning. You can find it at the link below. Now let's get back into the training. And then we have the contingency timelines. We've shortened all of these. The only one we did not shorten is this informational access to the property. But remember, the buyer's right to access the property for informational purposes only. That's what this is. It is not a contingency, and it does not create cancellation rights and applies even if contingencies are removed. So even if we remove all contingencies, they still will have access to the property for 17 days. Time of possession, the default is upon recordation. I usually leave this as is. Seller occupied or vacant units, you usually don't have to worry about that for a typical transaction. All of these we're going to leave blank because the defaults are fine. Then we have items included and excluded. So usually you're not going to include excluded items unless on the MLS they specifically say like the seller wants to keep the chandelier in the dining room. So then you would write on here, excluded items, chandelier. And the reason for that is just to make sure everybody understands everybody understands that the seller is going to be keeping that. Otherwise, you just want to specify what the buyer wants, and you can check these boxes here. Then moving down, we have our allocation of costs. So most of the time, the seller is going to pay for that. NHD, the seller pays for, you have to click provided by and who you want it provided by. This optional wildfire disclosure is generally not something that you need, but if you click this, then they need to order it. So save your seller and buyer some money and don't worry about it because it's going to be in the NHD anyway, and they're going to be able to follow up in different ways. So don't worry about this wildfire disclosure. Then we have smoke detectors, smoke alarms, all of that kind of stuff. The seller pays for generally. Government required point of sale inspections and reports. The seller generally pays for that. Government required point of sale corrective or remedial actions. Remember, I'm going to ask the seller to pay for this, but if I'm the listing agent, I usually push back and say the seller's not just going to agree to a blanket corrective actions. We're going to come back and negotiate. So I'm going to counter that out. But as the buyer's agent, I always want to see if the seller will pay. Then for your escrow fees, it's always each to pay their own choice of seller, or you can say, you can do something different. You can write in the escrow name that the listing agent is choosing, or you can write your own escrow name in. You just might get it countered out. Owner's title, seller usually pays, and it's the choice of the seller. Also remember that you're listing it out only if it's different from escrow. So sometimes escrow and title companies are combined. So if it's different, then you would list it out. And then county and city transfer taxes, the seller usually pays for that. HOA transfer fees. You have some defaults here that you can leave, but for the transfer fees, usually the seller pays. And then we have private transfer fees. See, the default is the seller, so you don't have to worry about that unless you've already come to an agreement where the buyer will pay or they'll both pay. You can write in different fees or costs, but in general, you're leaving this blank. If you write it in, it's not as strong of an offer. So you only want to write this in if if you know what you're doing. Home warranty plan is chosen by the buyer, and but the seller does usually pay for that. You can check your own home warranty company to see like what is the best. What do they use? How much does it cost for this particular house, this size of house, the types of things that they have, all of that. And then you can write in the amount there. But basically this says if seller or both are checked, the seller's costs are not to exceed $750. So I wrote in $750, obviously. So it just depends on how much you want to do. Or the buyer can waive the home warranty plan. And then if there are other terms, you can write them in here. So maybe an escalation clause or something like that. You can write that in here with other terms. The rest of this is just going to be checking the box for specific things for these, like this specific transaction, like if it's a manufactured house or tenant occupied, things like that. But in general, we're going to leave all of this blank. These checked boxes are already here and already attached, so you don't have to worry about this. These are going to be collected through escrow. And then keep in mind that for every section here, you have a corresponding paragraph below. So if you're wanting to see HOA fees for preparing disclosures, that's going to be on 11M2. So now we go down to 11. Here's 11. Now we go down to skipped it. M2. So then it's talking about the HOA and all of that. So all of this is explaining what's above. So you want to make sure that you're reading this and that your client understands that they can read it if they have any questions. A couple of changes were made on this, and I want to show you something that I think is actually pretty helpful. This definitions and instructions. This is actually something that's brand new. This whole section is brand new to this form, and it's actually really helpful for even the agent to read it and understand what this all means. So make sure that you're reading through all of this. Your liquidated damages and arbitration that your buyers are agreeing to and the sellers are agreeing to. Remember, if you're doing this in DocuSign, right now only DocuSign is who does it. It's grayed out. And so if you click on that, the signature sign, you just want to go over and say that it's required, not that it is optional. Because if you default to optional, then the buyer is going to default to ignoring it. So you want to make sure that it's required. And then of course, if they choose to say, I don't want to sign that, then you can remove it. But you want to make sure everybody understands what this is and what it means. So you want to get it signed. If there are entity buyers, you're going to write in the entity name, the LLC, trust, anything like that. And then the legal authorized signers down here. And then because ours is not that, I'm going to uncheck it. So our buyer is Betty Buyer that we had already written. And so she's going to sign and date with your DocuSign or Glide or AuthentiSign or whatever it is that you use. And then keep in mind that for the accepted offers, we have the seller can either sign it as is, or what's very common is a seller counter offer, which is CAR form SCO, seller counter offer, or SMCO, seller multiple counter offer. So that box needs to be checked for the sellers to sign it, and then you get the counter offer, which we will talk about in another video. Then down here, we have all of your information, all of the information of the seller's brokerage. So you remember, all of this information was just pulled because it was in the MLS Connect, but you can also just pull it from the MLS. And then the rest of this is just read and sign, make sure all the dates are correct. and make sure all of the signature spots are there. And we are done. I hope this helps. Keep following for more videos and how-tos for these new forms, because there were a bunch of new forms released in 2025 or changes or different things. We're going to talk through all of them. So stay tuned and make sure to follow along. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. There's plenty more where this came from, so be sure to check out the rest of the channel. And if you're a new agent or in your first year, make sure you grab my Start with Success course below. It's your foundation for building a real estate business the right way from day one. Don't forget the free resource as well, and I'll see you in the next video.